Hi everyone, my name is James Feeney. Welcome to or back to my channel. Today I'm here with a recap or a reflection on my month of October. So I usually go about these in the same ordering. I start by going through decks that I really enjoyed and worked with a lot during the month. Then I move on to the books I read and enjoyed. Then I follow it up with magical items and miscellaneous things. This month I also want to include experiences and things that are less tangible. I'm calling this a recap or a reflection as opposed to a favorites video, and I think that's something I want to stick to just because I want to speak to things that maybe weren't my favorite, but I also want to include them, and so I think it's more comprehensive and holistic if I just consider it a reflection or a recap. And so I hope that this is helpful and enjoyable for you all. I enjoy watching these. I get a lot of great recommendations on content, books, and decks, and so I'm hoping I can do the same for you all. As far as the decks go, and we're going to start there just now, this is not going to be much of a surprise. I'm not somebody who is filtering through and using so many different decks each month. I definitely am a creature of habit and stick to the same few. So I'll start with one that's not a surprise. We won't spend much time on it. My Thoth Greenie. This is the one I use for my daily draws, for most of my personal readings, for the majority of client readings as well, or some version of a Thoth. Sometimes I use my trimmed version, but this is the one that I usually keep on my sort of tarot table, sacred space, and the one that I use the most frequently, so that's of course always going to be a favorite. I apologize, it's a very gloomy day. I know the lighting won't be the best, but I hope it's not distracting. I hope everything's still pretty visible and true to color. So the next deck that I have to mention, we'll do all of the tarot decks first, is the Tarot of the Alchemical Magnum Opus by Robert M. Place. This is one that I've mentioned a few times on this channel. It's one that I mentioned as a favorite a year ago. It's a favorite that really comes back very often. I would say of Robert M. Place's decks, this is my favorite, even when compared to the actual Alchemical Tarot. I do have a video going through the book that accompanies the Alchemical Tarot decks and the Tarot of the Sevenfold Mystery, so I'll link that if you're curious about the book and the contents, and it does speak to the deck to some effect, but I think that this is my favorite. I like this better than the highly illustrative style of the Alchemical Tarot. This is a bit more of a pip deck in some ways. It comes with this little white book. You may have seen this, and I know I've shown it before, but the cardstock is great. It's that matte, very slidey, almost in a way, cardstock. I'm not a stickler for cardstock for the most part unless it really is distracting from using the cards. I don't care what the cardstock is like, but it is nice. Has the gold gilding. I like the minimally illustrated pips and minors and just the overall styling of it. I like cards that, I like how you get a hint of something. You get like an essence of, say, this court card, but there's not so much going on that it feels busy or confusing, and something about lesser illustrated cards that still give you something. Like each one's very different from each other, but I like, it feels more classic or old-fashioned in a way. I feel like I'm playing a card game and conducting divination in that way, and I've enjoyed it. I just find it very aesthetically pleasing and soothing when there isn't as much going on the card, but that it's still very beautiful, and I also like when each card is different. So that's one thing that kind of turns me off from Marseille. I know that there is a method to the structuring of the items and the pips and how they are laid out, but for me that's not quite enough to go on, so that's too minimally illustrated to me to be visually exciting. This is, I think, the perfect balance. So it's almost the same concept as the Thoth, where the Thoth is in some ways a pip deck, but it's so highly illustrative that it doesn't quite feel like one. I think that that's how I feel about this, and I think that that's a style and choice of deck that I tend to gravitate towards. So this has been a favorite, mostly just personally for myself. I like the idea of alchemy and as a spiritual concept and the sort of deeper undertones of what it represents to me on a deeper level. So while I'm not so interested in the technicalities of alchemy, I am interested in it as a philosophy or a concept. In theory, it's really something I can sink my teeth into. So that's a favorite, well, a returning favorite, I should say. And then the final favorite, and I hope that she doesn't mind me mentioning this, but I feel so called to. I'm sure she won't. But Hanny, my good friend Hanny from Fierce and Pretty, if you don't already follow her or subscribe to her, she has amazing content on tarot and a bunch of other things, so I'll have her channel linked below. But she was so kind and sent me a copy of a Finnish Thoth, and I have been loving this. So she mentioned to me that this is actually a version where somebody went back to the original paintings and rescanned them or digitized them pretty much with modern technology. So the coloring is different, and there are some differences in the art, and I love it for that. And she and I are both Thoth nerds, so we love to look at the little details and the coloration and all of that. So this is exciting, and a great find that Hanny found. And she has shown this on her channel and done a bunch of Thoth comparisons showing the differences. And so if that's something that interests you, definitely recommend checking those videos out on her channel. And I think the backs are super interesting. So where we have the older vintage versions that don't have a border on the back, and then the newer versions have a white border, this version actually has a little border, but the border's the same sort of creamy caramel gold as the coloration of the lighter brown or goldish brown in the back of the deck. And I actually really like this back. I wouldn't mind it. I don't like the white border on the back, and I do like when there's no border at all, but actually I really enjoy this backing. And so I've enjoyed using this. The coloration is beautiful. I don't speak Finnish. I don't know Finnish at all, but that doesn't really bother me. Sometimes I work with my trimmed Thoth that has no titles or keywords at all, so of course I still know what they are, but it's really nice. And the cardstock on this one's very interesting. It's very smooth and satisfying in some ways. And she was kind enough to send it with this pouch as well that she had made for me, that she had sent for me, and it has my little logo for Lemniscate Logic, my colors. It's beautiful. It's something I will cherish forever. I think it has to be one of the kindest, most thoughtful gifts I've ever received. So obviously I talked to Hanny and I've thanked her, but thank you again, Hanny, if you're watching this. It was just so wonderful. And so this has been out on my tarot table indefinitely, and it will probably remain that way for the foreseeable future. So that takes us through the tarot decks. I have one oracle deck to mention, and this is the Green Wheel Oracle by Danielle Barlow. I do have a review of this deck on my channel that I did a while ago, so I'm not sure how great it is content-wise, but it should give you an idea of what this deck entails. It's a favorite deck of mine. I remember I'd waited for it for such a long time because it was out of stock for a while on Little Red Tarot and on Etsy, and eventually it came back into stock or was posted again. This is now going back many, many months, but I got my hands on it. It's a lovely deck. It comes with this substantial guidebook that I really enjoy. You get a decent write-up on the cards. It comes in this hard cardboard box, and then you get this linen bag. The cards are, I've never seen or felt cardstock quite like it. It feels like it is linen cardstock, but it feels like actual fabric. Like I feel like I'm touching a waxy piece of fabric instead of cardstock or paper when I hold these cards. So very, very interesting. I do like it. These are the backs. And this deck is very much rooted in the Wheel of the Year. You get all of the moons that are titled, so you have a moon card for each moon in the year. You also have a bunch of animal cards. All the animals are going to be at the front, because I was actually using this deck for a few client readings, surprisingly, this month. I felt very called to incorporate it, and it just happened to work out. This deck has always been a favorite, and there are some times when it fades to the background, and this month it really came to the forefront. I was feeling very connected to the Wheel of the Year, the natural cycles and rhythms, and that's what this deck is all about. So you get a bunch of animal cards along with, let me find some of the other cards to show. You'll get all the moons for the year. They're done super well. You get, let's see, there are some without titles, but they do have write-ups in the book, and there are corresponding, they do have meaning. They're not just a random card without a title. There is something to it. I think those are the cards that connect to the points on the Wheel of the Year. And so anybody out there who's into natural rhythms, follows the Wheel of the Year, is very into nature-based spirituality, I think this deck would be great. I think it has more of a Celtic pagan lens to it, so just keep that in mind, but it's stunning. The artwork is beautiful. The cardstock is interesting, and the write-ups on the cards, you get like a little activity. It goes into just enough depth, and so I actually really love this deck, and it is a favorite this month and one that has seen a decent amount of use, so highly recommend this one as well. And if I haven't already, I'll have linked the review to this if you're curious about it. So that takes us through all of the decks. Now we're going to move right into the books. I'm actually really excited to talk about these books. I didn't read any... all of the books I read this month were fiction and novels. I didn't read any instructional, nonfiction, magical, or tarot-related books, actually, this month, surprisingly. I've really been wanting to get back to the roots of why I love reading. As a kid, I would go through a ton of novels. I'd have my dad drop me off at Barnes & Noble while he would run errands, and the one that I went to had a couch in it, and actually they just removed that because of COVID, and so I got sad when I went back for the first time. I mean, nobody would be able to sit, you're not supposed to stay, but I hope they bring it back when things get better in the future, because that's something about that place that I really enjoyed. But for me, novels are so important. I'm always reading novels. I don't always mention them on here, but I usually go through a few novels a month, and novels in my practice are actually really important. There's something that makes me feel inspired. It makes me, I don't know, when I'm reading novels, I just feel more alive on a day-to-day basis. So I read 3 this month. I only have 2 of them here because I had to read the other one online on my laptop. I read the first book in this series, so it's a series of 4 books, all by Octavia Butler, and you'll have seen the first book in this series on my reflection or favorites video from September. I also used the first book, which is called Wild Seed, to do a book mapping with the tarot, so there's a video of me using that book and going about the process of book mapping, so I'll have that in the cards. But there are a total of 4 in this series. Octavia Butler has a ton of books, and the first one in the series, technically, chronologically, was written at the very end, so it's a prequel that she wrote much later on, but I did read all of these in order. So we have Wild Seed, which I read in September, and then I read the next 3 all in October. So it goes Wild Seed, then it would be Mind of My Mind, then we have Clay's Arc, and the 4th and final one in the Patternist series. These are Patternist novels, so if you're looking, that's how you would know. The 4th and final one, I believe, is called The Pattern Master, and they're wonderful. These tick all the boxes for me. I think this is the best series I've read, I want to say, in a few years, and I was blazing through them, just spending so much time reading them, and I couldn't get enough, and I'm really sad that they're done, so I highly recommend them. If you want a review on the whole series where I go into them a bit more, I would be more than happy to do that, but I don't know if that's something anyone would be interested in. These are books that were written in, I believe, the 80s and 90s, and they went out of print and they're coming back into print. So the reason I had to read the 4th one on my laptop or on a Kindle was because the reprinting doesn't come out until December 29th, I think, and to try to purchase an out-of-print version of that 4th book, the cheapest I could find used online was for $60, and as much as I love reading books in a physical way, I was not willing to pay $60 and then wait for what would be probably very long postage just so I could read it. So I did read it on my laptop. So it's great that these are coming back into print. I know Octavia Butler has a bunch of series out there, so I'm eager to delve into maybe some of those. These books are very much fantasy sci-fi in nature, and they span over the course of many hundreds of years. So the first one took place in very far back in the past, hundreds of years in the past, and that one took place over maybe 300 years, getting closer to the present. This second one, Mind of My Mind, is supposed to be present day for when Octavia Butler wrote it, so this one takes place in the 80s, which is when this would have been released. Then we have Clay's Arc, and this actually takes place, I think, in 2021, which would have been the future for Octavia Butler, so it's interesting to see how she imagined the future. Of course, it's an alternate world with there's some fantastical elements, but it's meant to be a pretty realistic world with maybe less than realistic people and events. So it's interesting to see how Octavia Butler envisioned 2021 based on this book. And then we have the final one, Pattern Master, which we get the idea, a vague sense that it's fast forwarded a few hundred years from this point, and so it's almost this post-apocalyptic dystopian era, whereas the first books weren't. So there's a lot of progression throughout these books. Some characters there's a lot of connection between them, but there are different main characters within all of them, and then some characters carry over in certain books. I have to say that I think my favorite was the second, and then a close tie for second place with the first and the last. And then I will say I think my least favorite was the third book, Clay's Ark. It's only because this one felt so disjointed and it was harder for me to get into the events and feel connected to the characters, but it was very necessary, and the way that these kind of concepts, they seem very different. The worlds or the people and the events are very different between these two, and I almost was like, is this connected? And then I got to the fourth one and I was like, oh, it makes so much sense now. And then I was really glad that I did read the third one. This by no means is a bad novel. It's not one I disliked, but I would say out of the whole series, the second was my favorite, the third was my least, and the first and fourth were both amazing, and close tie for second, a second place that's just a hair under this second one. So really enjoyed them, highly recommend them, and I think there was something else I wanted to say, but I can't remember now. Well, that's that. So those were the books I read this month. I did dabble in reading a book on Freemasonry and one about past lives and souls, but I didn't finish them, and so I'm not including them. But stay tuned, they'll probably be mentioned, hopefully, if I decide to finish them this month in my November reflections. So that's all of the books. Now we have some miscellaneous things. I only have two. One's kind of magical and one's more lifestyle. So the magical one I have to mention is just a current favorite, is this cleansing spray or cleansing water. I got this at the shop that I do readings at. It doesn't say the name of the creator, or it doesn't have any links to a website or an email or a place to purchase. I don't think you can purchase these online or otherwise. I know they're done in very small batches and so sold locally, and there weren't even that many at the shop that I read at. I know that the creator, the woman who creates these and crafts these, imbues them with a lot of energy and creates very small batches, and then gave or sold a few to the store that I work at to be sold, and it smells amazing, and that's really the reason I got it. Actually, it's nice to use. I'm very sensitive to burning incense and herb bundles and that type of cleansing and creating of a space. It really irritates my throat. It can actually irritate my skin a little bit as well, and so sprays are great. Sound cleansing is great for me, and this one's not irritating. It has a little bit of black tourmaline in it. It doesn't say what is in it, so it kind of makes it feel more mysterious. It does say black moon water, black tourmaline cleansing water, so it smells really wonderful. I love it. I would just wear this as sort of like a body mist. It can linger on you a little bit. It really is pretty aromatic, and I really enjoy it. So that's, I guess, a magical favorite. I've been using that to cleanse my room, my space, the area where I do readings at the shop, and I've gotten a few comments on it from clients saying that they really liked whatever I used to cleanse the space, and so this is great. And if I do by some chance figure out where this can be purchased, or if it's able to be purchased, I will be sure to include a link or something on the screen, but I don't think that is the case. So the next and final sort of no, I have another one. I lied. We have two more. So this one is just a lip balm that I've been using. I used this like a year ago and then forgot about it, and then I got a new one. This is by the brand that I use for my like cosmetics and skincare. They sell a lot of different stuff. It's this sort of holistic, all natural, they craft them in a kitchen type of brand where, they make cosmetics and things that are meant to be good for you. So this is the Bumble Balm, and it lasts a very long time. It's a balm in general, so it's not just meant for your lips. You can use it on dry patches, on areas that need some smoothing. It's great for these drier months, especially where I don't necessarily want to lather up on the lotion, but I kind of like it for my knuckles in the areas that get drier so that they don't get all kind of cracked and stuff. So this balm is really great. Yeah, I've just been loving it. I'll link the website to this website below. I haven't really mentioned the products I use and all of that too much, but if anybody's curious and wants to know more about all of that, let me know. I did mention this whole line or this whole company or brand in a video that I did that was a VR to Nina from Shuffle Tarot, where she spoke about her environmental impact and things she does for the environment. And then I went through a little bit of my skincare over there, so if that's of interest, let me know. But the balm is really great, and I've been loving it for these recent drier, colder months. So the final miscellaneous item I have is this journal I recently got. I saw this in a store, and I'm kind of picky about my journals, and if I don't like the journal I'm writing in, or there's something about it that annoys me, I don't write at all. And I found that to be the case with recently. I was writing in a new journal, and I didn't really enjoy how it was going. There was a part of me subliminally that didn't like how I had to really hold it open to write in it. It felt like it was trying to close, and there was this like pressure, almost like holding a door open and waiting in between. That's how it feels, and I felt like I needed to hurry up and write, and it was hard to write on the back side of the pages, and I obviously want to write on the back side of the pages so I can really use the journal. So I like this one because it's one of those, first of all, it's big, and it actually is a dot journal, it's a dot journal. So I really enjoy dot journals as opposed to line journals and journals that don't have anything on them, because I feel like I can write in a straight line if I follow the dots, but I also feel like I can draw and put little inserts in with no issue, and that it still looks aesthetically okay. If I tried to maybe draw or put things into a line journal, I feel like I'm crossing over these lines and it doesn't look and feel right. And then if there are no lines, I feel like I'm turned off from writing, or I feel like it's harder for me to get into actually writing in it. So dot journals are my favorite. This is great because it's one of those types of journals that you can open to any page and it will lay flat. That's amazing. I feel like because I don't have to hold it open and use a hand to keep it from closing, I can just lay it on the table and just start writing. I also like how the pages are big and more square, so they're not narrow and long like some journals are. It's very much you're working with almost as much length as you are width, or almost as much width as you are length. And so all around this is just good. The texture of the paper is great. It's sort of an off-white, and I like the feeling of it. It's made from recycled materials, and it kind of has this linen waxy feeling to it. So all around this just ticks all the boxes for me. I'm trying to find what the brand is in case anybody's curious. It's called Cognitive Surplus, it says. Let's see. So if anybody's interested, I believe that's the brand, Cognitive Surplus, based in Portland, Oregon. I got this in just like a random shop, so if anybody's interested, but I've really been enjoying this exact journal. So, and I know they had a few different designs and options. So that's that on the miscellaneous items. Now, as far as experiences during this month, the major ones that I want to touch upon in terms of reflecting, I was away for the beginning portion of October, so I spent the first portion in warmer climate, just being by myself and taking some time for myself. So that kind of made the month feel like two separate chapters, very distinct. One where I was by myself and going to the beach and kind of in isolation, but also it felt quite tropical in a way. And then I have the October that felt like cool and traditional fall with friends and family. So that was a very interesting way to spend October, something I hadn't really ever done. And there's a part of me that did enjoy it. So that to me is an experience and something that I have been reflecting on and trying to understand, or at least not understand, but to really feel it. You know what I mean? Not just let myself brush past my experiences and forget how they made me feel or what they did for me or how I grew or changed because of them. So there's that. Another big October reflection, Halloween and Samhain. I didn't do anything particularly special for Samhain. I did a card reading and just a few little things for myself. I'm not somebody who I don't actually usually do big rituals or ceremonies and things on Samhain, and I think if I start to try to plan one, I will intimidate myself or psych myself out, or it'll just feel too big and too planned, and I actually will probably stop myself from doing anything at all. So the best thing for me to do is to be a little bit impromptu and just see what feels right in the moment, and that's a lot of what my practice is overall. And then as far as Halloween goes, I will have posted and you'll have seen a get ready with me sort of video where I dressed up as an angel for Halloween for a small event with my sister and two friends. That was really amazing. I enjoyed that a lot, and the opportunity to still dress up was great. And dressing up as an angel was a pretty powerful experience actually. Throughout the night I felt so powerful. I felt very connected to something outside of myself and also within myself at the same time. And so I feel like dressing up is something like that I might, not that I might want to do more often, but that holds a power. It's a form of magic that I feel like I just never recognized or tapped into. And so in maybe to a lesser degree, I would like to dabble in that a little bit more for the sake of magic. I know, for example, that I'll sometimes wear certain things, like I usually wear this necklace and ring on the new moon because I feel like I'm dressing up as the new moon and connecting to it. So things like that, the idea of just embodying something that I want to interact with and work with, and that way I can create a more sort of intimate experience with whatever that thing is. And for actual Halloween, I did that event. That event where I was the angel was the day before Halloween, and then on actual Halloween, I watched scary movies with my sister and had a bonfire, and that was really great. So overall, I think the season was still really eventful and fun, and my October was one of the best. So that was that. I just wanted to share those experiences. I would be very curious to know what you all are loving this past month, in the month of October, what fun experiences you had, if you did anything that you are reflecting on. Share it with me. Same for decks and books and items. Let me know. It's fun when we can share and swap these, and I'm looking forward to watching a lot of recaps of others' months on YouTube. So I hope you are all well. Like and subscribe if this was fun and interesting, and until next time, bye.